From the City of Angels, you're listening to the James Salazar Media Podcast. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the debates, the coming propositions for California, and who I think is going to win. So let me strike the music, and I'll meet you on the other side.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Say hello to my little friend.
No, I am your father.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
And welcome to the James Salazar Media Podcast, where you get your weekly dose of pop culture, politics, and futurism. I am your host, a.k.a. the media, the formerly mentioned James Salazar. Last night we had the debates, the final debates that will determine, well, they probably won't determine within themselves, but that will determine or give people a hunch of what they want to vote for the next 4 years. We are just 11 days away from what everybody says is the most critical election in human history. A little bit hyperbole there, but it is very important. And I thought everybody made their case fairly well. I think the debate was pretty much even. Well, a slight edge to Donald Trump because Joe Biden in the last debate got Donald Trump to be very aloof on his stance on against white supremacy. And that was, I thought, the moment where Joe won and basically Donald Trump's behavior kicked him in the ass. Overall, I thought Trump lost that debate. Joe Biden didn't win it. But in the debate last night, I felt Trump got him to admit that he's going to get rid of fossil fuels, which is pretty much the Democratic on their playbook. And it's sort of disingenuous of Joe Biden to act like he's not going to do it when we know 99% of his party wants him to do that. 99% of the people who were trying to run for office were going to do that. His vice president wants to do that. And just like a tongue-in-cheek thing going on where they're willing to lie just for the election because they know once they're in, it doesn't matter. They're going to push their far-left eco policies, and they will kill oil. They will stop fracking, especially if they believe what they believe about it, that it's going to cause the end of the world, and that fracking causes methane to come from the ground and all these other things. And I'm not sure myself if it does or not, but fracking is a big boom to certain economies in our nation, and if it ends, a lot of people will be out of a job. And people who owe jobs are voters. So therefore, we need not to be so overt and so upfront on our willingness to kill fracking and drilling for oil. And I felt Donald Trump pushed him last night to admit that there's going to be a transition. And for sure, supposing that he's president for 8 years, it has to come in 8 years. It has to come in his administration because the next administration will stop it. So the transition has to happen in 8 years. Most likely, he doesn't think he's going to survive. Nobody thinks he's going to be cognitively there. In the first 4 years, we will see a decline. So in my mind, if he's going to transition oil, transition fracking, he's going to want to start that transition in his first 4 years. Assuming he lasts to the next 4 years, we really can't tell. that might be a problem. Donald Trump picked up and pushed his son's questionable dealings with Russia. And we'll see if that holds water. But if it is as bad as people say, it is as bad as people are trying to make it. And let's be clear, the last 4 years have not been good of people claiming somebody did something and that they have 100% proof. And then when it came down to the wire to present that evidence, there was none. They never presented collusion. They never had any significant evidence to do that. Quid pro quo. I forget there's so many things they try to get him on, Donald Trump. And every single time, the Democrats said, this is the smoking gun. This is going to happen. It's a foregone conclusion that he has been doing this. And then when it came down and they got the country to come together to see if the president truly was doing these things, they had no evidence. They could not push it over the goal line. Now, if they did it just to smear Donald Trump's name for the next election, and Donald Trump loses this election, then it would have been a brilliant play by them. They were playing the long game. But don't be fooled. If you do not think that the next president, if it's Democrat, will have the same kind of shenanigans done to him. And we already have something. Now, if the Republicans are like the Democrats and they really have no evidence, which I don't think they would. They don't seem like that kind of people who will do impeachment if they didn't have proof. Unlike the Democrats, they use it as more of a political tool to influence people about the president. And like I said, if it works, then they did their job. But I think the Republicans, if they go ahead with impeachment, it will be because they have the evidence. Because if you just look at the philosophies of the two parties, one is about democracy, Democrats, same word. One's about law, republic, nation of laws. So they have two different. Now, Democrats know that if you can convince the majority of people to see it your way and then vote, majority rules, they can change the way you vote. So their biggest value is democracy, mob rule. If they can meet that argument emotionally, get you to think that emotionally, then those tactics used by bringing up all these false claims, if it makes you think that this guy has too many problems, you're going to vote against him. Now, the Republicans, they're a nation of laws. You'll hear the two dynamics every time when a Democratic senator, congressperson, president goes up, they say, we are a democracy. We must fight for democracy. And you hear on the Republican side, we are a nation of laws. We should obey the law. So the very logistic mentality of the Republicans would suggest that if they're going to do impeachment, they're not going to do it to an influence. They're going to do it to get him out of there because they have proof. And I think they're going with this vein because they do have proof. And if they do have proof, this does not look good for Joe Biden at all. And he will be like the first president who walks in and gets impeached 3 months later. In fact, I truly believe if this is true, and if the Republicans are consistent of how their philosophy works, you are truly voting not for Joe Biden, but Kamala Harris. You are pulling the trigger for her because he won't be in there very long. If it is as bad as it seems, Joe Biden could get in there and get impeached right away. This is what I think. A lot of other people think this. And a lot of people even think that Joe Biden is being told what to do. Because of his vice president choice, you have someone who blatantly called him a racist, and they made him choose through identity politics who was going to be his running mate. He should have had Bernie or Elizabeth Warren, who did the best under him. Kamala Harris didn't do good at all. She knew she wasn't going to get the delegates, so she jumped out of the race in California because she wasn't going to do good in her own state. And she didn't want to be embarrassed by that, so she got out. Now she snuck her way in. There was pressure on Joe Biden to make this choice, and he made it. He went with one of the people who did the worst because of identity politics, who has a very troublesome past based on prosecution of black people. And I think he didn't want to choose her. He doesn't like her. He didn't appreciate her calling him a racist. And I don't think if it was left to his own choices, he would have picked her. Now, so we don't know what we're going to get with Joe Biden. It's a big mystery. We really can't take into account what he says. I would hope that he would go in there if he won and be the moderate that he says he is. But I won't hold my breath. But here's the thing. Donald Trump will lose if this is a referendum on how he handled COVID-19. And this argument will have to be emotional based upon the people who died. If your family member, 200,000 people around, a little more, have died of COVID-19. Now, if the Democrats can make the voter feel that, the weight of that number emotionally, the majority of the voters, he will lose. If the voters look at it pragmatically and practically, Donald Trump will win. Because pragmatically is, number one, they said 2 million people were going to die. And only 200,000 and some change have died. That is a 90% success rate. And when people are saying that he didn't do enough, they expected a 95 to 100% success rate based on a pandemic that we have never experienced before. No one with any common sense will say that Donald Trump did not drop the ball in certain areas. But his first reaction, closing all travel to China with only 150 cases in America, cutting travel to Europe, that Joe Biden, which you can't reverse history, said it was very xenophobic and racist for Donald Trump to do. Now, we must take in the history of how the Democrats have been reacting this last year based on identity politics. We can concur from that he would have not stopped travel from China based on how it would look with people who value identity politics. So Donald Trump has dropped the ball, but we would have been way worse under Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. They would have played identity politics with people's lives. And I'm not saying they're going to would have had 2 million, because I think the greatness of America made it low. Donald Trump didn't get the full credit for that. But maybe about 300,000 to 700,000 more people would have died if the Democrats were in charge. Now, Donald Trump. And another case against that is that identity politics rules the Democratic Party, that they were willing to shut down entrepreneurs and customers, but they weren't willing to shut down protest because it was based on the perception, and maybe part truth. We don't know what this cop was thinking of who put his knee upon George Floyd's neck. We didn't know if it was a hatred of black people. That's still yet to be determined. But anybody's opinion is justified. You can think what you want, but that's what people were protesting for. Racism and police brutality. And that cops have a lesser view of black people than they do have of any other race. They were allowing them to protest. They said that was okay. Identity politics determined what they were going to stop and what they were not going to stop. It is in the wheelhouse to believe that if they were in charge, there would have been more deaths under them. But Donald Trump definitely dropped the ball. Some of the things he said downplayed the seriousness of it. He definitely told people not to get off masks before, or suggested or hinted that masks don't play a big deal. And it was foolish for him to say it. That's just straight being real. But the people who are criticizing him, they would have done better. Well, I wouldn't hold my water. That doesn't hold water if you look at how they run things. How they're willing to let cities burn based on identity politics. And at the end of the day, and you notice, suddenly all the rioting and the looting has totally went down the closer we have gotten to the election. They didn't do it because the president told them not to do it. And they sort of didn't do it after Joe Biden didn't do it. They just knew that at this point, the other party, the Democratic Party, are associated with burning cities. The majority of the burning cities were in Democratic cities. And that problem has been around way longer than Donald Trump has been running for office. Every 10 to 15 years, Los Angeles has a riot. So, and I think it's a great point that someone who's been in office for almost 50 years, and someone who's just been in there for 3 years has made more of a dent in our society concerning mass incarcerations, black poverty, black education, than this guy who was in there for 47 years. He's playing the political game, and Donald Trump pointed it out last night. You're a politician. You're speaking to them like a politician. You're speaking to them at their table. But you could have done this a long time ago, but you didn't do it because you didn't know how to convince people to do it. Or you just didn't have the courage just to blow people away and say, I'm going to do it whether you want it or not. No, I'm not sure if the president has any, is he violating any kind of rules by supplying black colleges with millions of dollars for the next 10 years. But Barack Obama and Joe Biden didn't do that. They had it where they had to come and kiss their hand and kiss their feet every year. Donald Trump's, why you keep on coming into my office? So we have to. He says, 10 years. Boom. He didn't care about the political calculation of it. He knew it was right to do, and he did it. Now, that might be a stupid politician, but he's not a politician. So who do I think is going to win? I have no freaking idea. All the polls say Joe Biden is ahead by 10 points. Now, they said that last time, and they were wrong. But I would have to assume that they learned from their mistakes and they made the right adjustments to calculate the possibilities of each candidate's probability of winning. No. But the media is so biased, I don't know if it might not let them come to that conclusion. And the one other thing that I think that they couldn't get numbers on is it's not the silent majority of like Christians, but it's a silent majority who do not want to be shamed for voting for President Trump. People are not going to tell people if they're going to vote for Donald Trump because people will look down on them. People will shame them. You see it all over Facebook. I mean, I don't know how many friends who just shame. I mean, and they're so self-involved. They can easily find out what I believe about this if they listen to my podcast. But, I rarely get into any political arguments with people. They're very measured and they're presented in a way where I know I'm successful in this argument. But they shame people left and right if they admit that one thing Donald Trump did good. Well, in an environment like that, you cannot gauge who's going to win when people are being shamed. Now, I'm sure everybody's going to say a bunch of bad stuff about the people if Donald Trump wins. But for me, this is my choices. I want Donald Trump to win in a landslide. My second choice is to have Joe Biden win in a landslide. This is too close to call. It is terrible for our country. I'd rather have Joe Biden win by a landslide than Trump win by a little. This is how I feel. We are so divided. And I think the next step, everything people did left of center to fight Donald Trump's election, you're going to find that the other side of the aisle are going to act the same way. But the only difference here is those people have guns and they know how to use them. And I can't say what this looks like. But whoever needs to win by a landslide. I do want Donald Trump to win in a landslide. I hope that happens. I'm not sure that's going to happen. I don't know. I will be watching intently, drinking, maybe, watching who wins the election, that the person I put my money and energy behind wins. Look, and I'm not a big fan of Donald Trump personally. And if there were more moderate people on the Democratic side that I trust were moderate, I might have voted the other way. And Donald Trump fixing the economy and making it vibrant, you can't take that away from him. A third-party element coming in called COVID-19 and shutting everybody down, I don't think you can blame him for that. And he would have opened up a long time ago. Now, whether that was wise or not, you have to judge. But to blame this recent bad economy on him, and then on the other hand, blaming him for opening up. Well, you can't have both parties. You can't eat your cake and eat it too. I mean, either he should shut down till it's 100% gone, or there's a vaccine, and he should be blamed for the economy, or you should allow him to open up the whole country and then blame him on how good the country comes back. I think that's reasonable. Right now, he wants it to come back. He wants to open up, and he said there was going to be a V-shaped recovery, and that's what's happening. We're adding jobs. And people said it was going to be impossible. Those on the other side said it would be impossible. He's already proven him wrong. And at the end of the day, the best form of fighting racism is with jobs. The best social program is a job. There's a saying, idle hands are the devil's playwork. That means when you have nothing to do, when you can't do anything, when you don't have a job, you're going to get into shit that gets you in trouble. That's just it. And if you have a job and you have a car and you have a bill and you have an apartment, you tend to stay on the straight and narrow because you don't want to lose those luxuries. So we need the economy to come back. Who's the best to do it? I don't trust Democrats. They're going to take everybody who's already struggling because of COVID-19 and add a tax hike to those companies. I mean, there should be a moratorium for the next 4 years for to keep the taxes the same and then raise them. But right at the gate when you're opening up, you want to tax them? And until the Donald Trump taxes went towards everyone. So you have to replace the middle class and the poor tax cut with a different proposition or a different law or a different measure. I'm not finding the word, or what do you call it? A different act. Because if they don't, then automatically those tax cuts that Donald Trump gave to the middle class and to the poor, right along with the rich, they all get taken away at the same time. And then your taxes go up by default. So in a sense, they're right. They're not putting any law that taxes you higher. They're just taking the one that gives you the cuts. And they act like they're being honest. And they're not being honest. If they're going to take out the Trump's tax cuts, it's going to come along with tax cuts with the rich, with the poor, and the middle class. At the beginning of opening up after a devastating pandemic. This is stupid. This is dangerous. And at the end of the day, more people are going to die because of poverty than of COVID-19. If this economy doesn't come back. If the American economy doesn't go back, people will be desperate. People will start to steal. People, just to survive, will take things from other people. This is how societies work outside of the United States, outside of the Western world. If you don't have, you're not going to sit there and starve. You're going to take from another. And Donald Trump is already fixing this economy. If he fixed this economy in 4 years, if he fixes 2 economies in 4 years, when Barack Obama barely fixed one in 8, that should be a death knell on how Democrats run economies. Let's get into propositions because I can go on this all day long. There's tons of things that are coming to my mind, but I'm not going to get to the things I need to get to. So we need to get to walk. And this is specifically for people in California. You might have similar laws anywhere else in the nation, but we need just to get on this. Let me see where we at. I'm sliding. And hold on. My computer's not working right. Boom. Boom to your mother. Another trouble. Authorized bond continues stem cell research initiative statute. Okay, so a couple years back, we decided to use embryonic stem cells to try to come up with some fixes of diseases. Now, the thing about embryonic stem cells, you need to fertilize the egg to get the stem cell. Okay, so for a lot of people believe life starts at conception, and people think you're just killing babies to do experiments. Health, and because you devalued human life, you are now able to do that. Now they're asking for more money, and there has not been any cure come from that. See, that stopping of that lost. And they went ahead and did it. They found the money, and now they want more money. and they have nothing to show for the last time. So should we do this morally questionable act that we already said yes to with all these promises, but none of the promises came true? And should we do it again? This morally questionable act. So if you want to give more money to stem cells, and we know adult stem cells already, the stem cells taken from you, your personal body, are way more successful than embryonic stem cells. We have way more cures come from that, way more problems, way more fixes from that than we do from embryonic stem cells. But we're still fertilizing those eggs, and as the stem begins to grow, we then take it and use it for experiment, which means killing. Most people don't want to look at it with those words. Killing that fetus to harvest that stem cell. Okay? So vote how you see fit. You could put another $5.5 billion, and we could come up with nothing. Maybe we should use that money for something else that has more promising medical advancements that are producing results. But if you're against abortion, you're probably against this. So that's Prop 14. Say yes if you want to double down on stem cell, embryonic stem cell, and no if you do not want it because it is morally wrong to you, or it hasn't produced nothing, and let's put that money towards something that is producing results. Prop 15. Let's look at Prop 15. Prop 15, where are you? There we go. Increased funding source for public schools, community college, and local government services by changing tax assessments of the commercial and industrial property. This would be a constitutional amendment. Taxes such property based on current market values instead of purchase price. Fiscal impact: increased property taxes on commercial properties worth more than $3 million, providing $6.5 billion to $11.5 billion in new funding to local governments and schools. Now, basically, they're going to raise the taxes on what the property is currently worth. Your taxes get assessed every year, not on what you bought it for. Okay, so I bet they don't want to do that for cars. That's paying taxes less. But, so they're going to raise taxes on business during the pandemic. They pay higher taxes on the place that they have. So worth $3 million. Providing $6.5 billion. I'm pretty sure it's going to take $6.5 billion. So this is my thought about it. California is bleeding jobs right now to other states, and this is going to bleed a whole host of other ones. I don't think they're going to get that 6.5 actually, because I don't know how many businesses are going to stay. Businesses are looking for reasons to stay in the greatest state in the country. No matter how left we are, I mean, it could be a paradise if they were fiscally responsible and didn't tax everybody up their ass. But no, but people have to leave, and people are leaving because it's too oppressive. Taxes are too high, and they're too authoritarian. They want to tell you what to do, and it's a big problem. Now they want to go for another grab, and where traditionally you got taxed on what you bought the place for every year, now they want to say what it's worth. Well, there's some properties that were worth maybe $1 million that are worth $10 million now. Look it. Your job is to make the people's economy work, not just the government economy. And if your grab for money ruins the economy of the people, of the entrepreneurs, and the customers, And that interaction of the free market system sends more businesses out of here because you are making all the laws concerning the government's economy and how much money the government can take in. Well, that seems very unwise. And this government is no longer for working for the people. It's working for itself and having the people pay its way. That's not how we wanted to start this state. The government lives for our pleasure. We don't live for the government's pleasure. And just common sense, why would you put this amendment when none of the teachers are working right now? They're not going into school. People are practically raising their own kids, teaching their own kids. Or they're practically being their teacher because they can't go to work because the schools are not open. How about we don't open the schools until we have a cure? And all you teachers get on the unemployment line and we'll just homeschool our kids. How about that? Then for you to ask more money for doing the minimum amount of work. Maybe you should suffer like we should suffer. Because if I have to be there and I have to explain and I have to teach, what good are you? Your job is only as important as the job that you do. If you're not teaching and people are not learning, then you don't get some special dispensation because you have a title of a teacher. Same thing with cops. If you're not serving the community and you're harassing the community, your position, your title is not as important as the job that you do. And if you're not doing your job right, then maybe you shouldn't do it. If you want that level of respect, you have to take that level of responsibility for teachers, for cops, for anybody who works in the government. If you want that level of respect, you have to take that level of responsibility. If you want to live in the world where you get paid and you don't take responsibility from the outcomes of your work, well, we don't live in that world. And we'll never live in that world. And we're always going to fight back against that. Especially when you're taking the citizens' money with the promise that you are doing your job. Prop 16 allows diversity as a factor in public employment, education, and contracting decisions. Legislation is a constitutional amendment permitting government decision-making policies to consider race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin in order to address diversity by repealing constitutional provisions prohibiting such policies. All right, so this is affirmative action. So basically, they want affirmative action. They want you to have a quota of how many people based upon race should be in your business that you employ. And it shouldn't be based on merit. It shouldn't be placed on skill. That everyone, no matter whether they're the fry cook or the chef, they all should get paid the same. This will be another boondoggle for people who want to work in California and want to open a business in California. You're no longer allowed to hire the best people. You have to hire the right people, and the right according to what government says is right. And it's ultimately racist to consider race first. We have already laws on the books that if someone has the same skill or more and they're not considered for employment, that is against the law in the United States. If a woman who does the same job just as good or better and it is not considered for employment or for a raise or for a position, that is against the law, and you are open up to legal action. People will sue you. You can't do that in California. Now, what this says, that the government will dictate who you're going to hire based upon their race, sexual orientation, and a myriad of other things, gender, and that's so elusive. So this is just a way to control people to make the decisions that they want them to make, because they think that if they force it on you, you won't be racist, you won't be prejudiced, but the opposite is true. you create more resentment. The defining value of the United States is freedom. There's a lot, but the defining virtue, the defining attribute should be freedom. This is why slavery is such a big mark on our history, is we deprived freedom from people. It wasn't equality. Making everybody else slave wasn't going to help the issue. It was giving freedom to the slaves that were going to solve the issue, that made us right in the sight of the Constitution. I believe a black man can do whatever a white man can do. And do is the ultimate word. If they can do it, then they should have a chance to do it and prove they can do it and earn they can do it. When a woman can do something a man can do and she can do it just as good or better, she should be considered for the job. That's it. If she can't do it, if she doesn't have the skills to do it, or she doesn't have the physical attributes to do it, then she shouldn't be considered for the job. If a woman can do something physically and the only option is a weaker man and he can't do it, she should get the job because she can do it. If you can do it, you should get the job. If you can't do it, you can't do it. But race should not be the determining decision. We can go deeper into this, but we're on a time constraint. You can't find discrimination by discriminating a certain sect of people based upon race and preferring others. This is the original problem. You can't reverse racism to fix racism. You just got to get rid of it. You can't make it a consideration. So I'm voting no. I'm voting no. Prop 17 restore the rights to vote after completion of prison terms, legislation and constitutional amendment. Now, while they're on probation, they can vote. And parts of me thinks, I go back and forth. I don't care about the outcome on this. Is that once they're square with the House on what they did do, that they did the time, then that's it. I understand they got to be on probation to be watched so they don't redo crimes, but whether they get caught or not, if they're doing bad, they're going to get caught. So, if they pay the price that the jury and the judge said they had to pay and they paid it, I don't see why they can't have voting rights. And they should have voting rights until they lose it again. If they're going to do crime again, then they're going to lose it again. It should be in their hands why they lose it. If they forfeit the right to vote because of the crimes they did, and they pay the price for that, they should have those rights returned because they live in our society. They're trying to be productive. And we shouldn't stop them from being productive until we know they're not. And that's it. Once they did the time, we should not, and they pay that price, then their rights should be returned. Considering if they're violent offenders, that maybe their gun rights should be exempt. But that's not what we're talking about here. What I'm talking about here is that once they do the crime, they do the time, they have paid the price, and therefore they don't need to pay any other price. They're now citizens again, and until they violate the social contract of behaving and obeying the laws, it would take the rights away from him again or her. That's it. That's how you handle things, I think. I say yes, restore. Or figure out a sentence that covers that too and just keep it longer. Whatever. Is that like another year? And then we restore the rights? No, let's be decisive as a society. This is what they get, and once they pay that price, they get their rights back until they lose them based upon their actions. So yes for me on 17, I think. Was that 17? Okay, 18 next. Amendment for California Constitution to permit 17-year-olds to vote in primary and special elections if they will be turned 18 by the general election and be otherwise eligible to vote. Legislative Constitution amends. Yeah, so basically, I'm trying to think here. Let me see. Let me just read it. Yes, vote on this measure means 17-year-old will be 18 years old by the time of the next general election, may vote in a primary election and special elections preceding the general election. Okay, so this is what it means. If they're legal to vote by the general election, they should be able to vote before they're 18 on general elections to pick what they're going to vote for in the primary election, what they're going to vote for in the general election. No, I say if they're 17 and the law says they're not, either give them the whole right to vote at 17 or not. Don't be messing around. Let our yays be yays and our nays be nays. If you want them to vote on 17, then you should make a law that says we should allow voting age be at 17. Now, we know nobody's going to do that because we know how stupid 17-year-olds are. But at a certain point in time, we have to decide when we got to get these stupid people rights, and we do it at 18. So 18 is the number. Okay? So I say no on 18. Ironically, Prop 19 is a change to the tax laws, makes it harder for people to will their houses to their family and not have a big tax hike. They think this would motivate people to downsize. So it's a punishment, which is weird. So, no, I don't think so. I mean, people who buy their house, they should do whatever they want with it. And the government shouldn't try to take their teeth into it as much as they can. That's what I think. So I'm going to vote no for that. But they're supposedly saying that money is going to go to people, but I doubt it. I won't hold my breath that any money that they tax goes to where they're supposed to go. So let's go to number... Restrict parole for certain offenses currently considered to be nonviolent. Authority felon sentences are certain offenses currently treated as misdemeanors. Okay. Limit access to parole program established for nonviolent offenders who have completed the full term of the primary offenses by eliminating eligibility for certain offenses. Fiscal impasse. Okay, I don't care about that. All right. Yes, vote on this measure means people who commit certain theft-related crimes, such as shoplifting, could receive increased penalties, such as long terms. Additional factors would be considered for the state process for retaining certain inmates in prisons early. Law enforcement would be required to collect DNA samples from adults convicted. Okay, voting no. So let's hear the pros and cons. Pro for this closes loopholes in the law that allows convicted child molesters, sex predators, and other convicted of violent crimes to be released from prison early. Positions 20 and explains DNA collection to help solve rapes, murders, and serious crimes, strengthening sanctions against habitual thieves and steal repeatedly. Okay. Well, somebody went to molesters then to people who steal repeatedly. So the con is 20 is a prison spanning scam. California already serves lengthy sentences, including life in prison for serious and violent crimes. Prison special interest wants to scare you into spending tens of millions on prisons that could force draconian cuts to rehabilitation, schools, mental health, and homeless. Oh my God. This is a hard one. Based upon... No, I think we should have separate laws for strong and separate laws for child molesters. And I don't know. This is the thing about our society. We're so reactionary that if I say no on this, then I want sex predators. But if I say yes on this, I want to put people who just put something in their pocket, stole one time, to get 20 years in prison. And this is so, the wording on this is so suspect. It sounds like these private prisons would get a windfall out of this. And right now we do not need draconian cuts on mental health because we've been homeless, because they are flooding, especially our society in Los Angeles and in Seattle and San Francisco. So all over the place. What do I care about Seattle for? Sorry. This has nothing to do with them. So I am open-ended. I need to study this more, so I'm not going to tell you yes or no. I'm not sure if they put that molestation, all that stuff, just to get you to bite, and then do this switch towards people who are stealing a carton of milk, and then they get 20 years in jail, and which adds money, So I don't know. I need to read this more. So, sorry, buddies. If this is something that you really want to be educated about, get educated about it and make a proper decision. So let's go to 21. Local governments and authorities to enhance rent control on residents' properties. This one's fairly easy to me. If you're someone who maintained a good credit score, and you're someone who was disciplined to get a down payment and save money, and if you were disciplined to pay that payment on time and pay the taxes and fix up your property day in and day out, month in and month out, year in and year out, no one should tell you how much you should rent your house for. Unless you've been there, you've been me, you know what the hell you're talking about. That's from Rocky. No, that's from Rambo. So, no, I don't think they should do that. It's your property. The free market will fix it. If somebody in some poor city wants to charge $3,000 for their house, they should. It's likely that the free market won't support that price structure, that price point, and they will be forced to go down to the right price point, because they won't be able to rent it. No one's going to go in there willingly to pay that. No one's forcing people to pay the amount of the rent. You have to agree to it. No one's a victim here. No one's forced to go into it. And if it's too high, nobody will rent your property. What are you going to do? You're going to have to lower the price. Let the free market determine. Now you're saying, well, everybody's going to put it at the price they want, and there'll be no rents. There'll be no rents for anybody. Nobody's going to rent to anybody. No. If somebody wants to rent their property, they will have to push it down to where it is acceptable based upon the free market. No one's going to buy $100 milk, okay? No matter how much you force them to do it, no matter what. No one's going to do it. They're going to have to lower it down to an acceptable rate. And you're going to have to prove why that rate is justified. Now, if you want to get somebody who lives in a nice city to lower their property, their rent to like $1,500, go live in less than a nice city. Or make more money. Or save money and buy your own house. Go to a place that charges $1,200, $1,500. Save your money then go get a house you can afford to make consistent payments on. No one's a victim here. Prop 22, the first fight in destroying independent contractors from California. The people who want to get rid of independent contractors want to unionize everything. And if unionizing was so great, then everybody would have never bought Uber and stuck with taxis. But taxis were crap, and Uber saw a market they can get into, create a business, and still a much better model, a more comfortable model, a more customer service model. But it's independent contracting, and this is the first fight. We got the gig economy, we have other type of freelance work that where you are going to have to hire people, give them a living wage and medical for you to work with them. And this could crush people. And there's a lot of people who depend upon 99% of their business is based upon hiring independent contractors. This will kill their business. So this is the first fight. If this fails, this is a green light to every other independent contractor work. Uber has the deepest pockets. They affect the economy the most. And if they lose, then every other contractor, independent contractor type of work is on the chopping block. So I say yes on 22 because I believe in freedom, that I know what to do for myself more than those idiots. And there are idiots. Anybody tell you anything less? They're an idiot. There are idiots running our state. Complete idiots. It is the worst run state in the union. They are idiots, and I know what to do with my life more than what they want to do. And part of the reason why they're acting idiots is because they are corrupt. They are 100% corrupt, and they're willing to destroy 200,000 jobs, plus probably total at the end, if they get their way, about 1 million jobs from the economy because they're beholden to unions. Prop 23. Prop 23 is establishing state requirements for kidney dialysis clinics require on-site medical professionals. Let's read the pros and cons. Combat poor hygiene in dialysis clinics by requiring infection reports, improving staffing, and including requiring a doctor in the clinic during treatment. California Nurses Association, California Medical Association, and the patient advocates strongly urge no on 23. 23 would force many community dialysis clinics to shut down, threatening the lives of 80,000 Americans, 80,000 California patients who need dialysis to survive, to increase the health care costs of hundreds of millions of annually. So basically, if they make the changes to their dirtiness, it all depends on what they're requiring them to do. That's it. If they're requiring them to do like tons of stuff that will kill them, kill their business, then I understand the plight. And but it's not good to have dirty places where they're doing dialysis stuff. All right? It's not a good idea, man. It's not a good idea to be dirty. It's not a good idea. No. I don't know what to vote on this. I don't want to screw businesses and get people less access to health care. But I don't want this shit to be dirty. So figure it out. I don't know what to vote. I don't know. I just don't know. All right, 23. 24. Amend consumer privacy laws. Let me see. Yes, votes measures means existing consumer privacy laws are right. Okay, yes. We need more privacy laws, for sure. They have way too much access to our information, and we're too stupid to sign something to keep them from it. So let there be existing laws that puts the rights. As long as the rights are in the plan, give rights back to the citizen, I am for it. But unfortunately, this law is so badly written. it needs to be more fine-tuned because on one hand, it protects they're both saying they protect consumer rights. And if they're both saying they're protecting consumer rights, one of them's lying or they're both not telling the truth. I don't know. So that means everybody telling the truth, James. So it is poorly written. So anything that's poorly written that needs a yes, I'm going to say no. Okay, last but not least, we have Prop 25, referendum on laws that replace money bail with system based on public safety and flight risk. So basically, they're going to have an AI determined based upon their but let's read the pros and cons really quick before I comment. Yes, on 25 replaces money bail with a fairer, safer, and less costly process. Currently, if a person can afford to pay bail bonds company, they go free. And if you can't, you afford to pay. Even if you're innocent, you stay in jail. This is a blatant discrimination. 25, well, here's a con. Politicians to take away even California's option to post bail, place the rights with a new discriminatory system of computer-generated profiling administration by government bureaucracy, costing taxpayers hundreds of dollars. Okay, so they think the AI is going to be racist? Racist AI will choose black people only. Here's the discrimination. Here's the inequality. That if you're rich and guilty, you're going to get bail. If you're poor and innocent, you ain't making bail. And that's a problem. If this fixes that, I'm for it. If they can because some rich people should not be out of jail. They should stay inside because what they did was so horrendous. We don't know. Maybe they may not be a flight risk, but they might be someone who might commit the crime again. And there's some people who have so many families dependent upon them to get out, get back to work, put food on the table, and because they can't pay bail, because they live paycheck to paycheck, and they might be innocent, they can't make it. Well, that's wrong. That's wrong. Once the court decides who's wrong, who's guilty, who's not, then they should pay the crime. But we're not talking about that. We're going to have a computer determine whose risk of running and whose risk of who's going to do the crime again, and they should be kept in, as opposed to people who are not. Now, here's the problem. Majority of the crimes are committed by minorities. There will be people who can raise money to get them out that won't be able to get out based upon this new way of judging bail. So, but overall, I think we should help people who can't afford it. So I'm going to say yes. Okay, we're done. We went through them. But look, I completely realized that some of the laws I'm going to vote for might have unintended consequences. And when they come, we shouldn't put them back on the chopping block. Right? So something sounds good, fine, let's do it. And hopefully it does good. But if it doesn't do good, then we should be flexible enough to put it back up and get rid of it. I hope they say I hope they do what they say they're going to do. But there are some not very worded right, and that I'm taking a chance. And there's some that are so worded wrong that I'm not going to do. So let your conscience be your guide. It's not easy being a responsible citizen. So the world's going to change on November 3rd. I encourage you to vote to get your voice in. Those propositions are more important than the presidency concerning California, because California's it's electoral college, and all those votes go straight. They're going to go to Big Joe, because this state is predominantly Democratic, and that's how the electoral college works. So let me tell you, it is the local laws, it is the local propositions, local to your state, that matter. Don't be somebody who doesn't vote because they don't like who's running for president. No, you go in there and you vote the propositions that affect you the most and just leave the presidency empty, whatever. Or flip a coin. I don't care. But the props are more important in our country right now. And also the senators and in your state senators and the congressmen in California, those are the most corrupt people in the nation. Let me tell you something. Regardless if you're Democrat or Republican, they have gone too far. They have gone too far. Democrats need to vote them out too and revamp the Democratic Party for California to be more effective, because 60,000 homeless. I know Democrats, friends who are Democrats who don't want that to happen, are not happy that is happening. And the state government, all those people are living in mansions while people are starving in the streets. This can't be the Democratic Party you want to support, that you were hoping for. I'm sorry to say, you got to vote a list of fiscal responsibility Republicans for a good 4 years to 8 years, and then hire back your Democratic people that you like, that you think they're going to be for the people and not for themselves. Because right now, they are so emboldened that they're cutting millions of jobs out of the economy. They're shutting everybody down, and they want to raise taxes just to maintain their power, and they don't care how it affects people. We've gone way too far to the left. We got to pendulum a little bit back the other way. Or guess what? California can someday very possibly apply for bankruptcy, and they don't have to meet those commitments that they made to their state employees, the local governments. You don't want that to happen. So that's it. That's all I'm going to say about this. Over. I will be glad to be done with politics. Well, as much as I've been talking about politics, but it's an election year, it's given. I haven't done headline from the futurism as much as I would like to. But we're in an election cycle, and last night was a debate, and so here we are. But on the 3rd, guess what, my friends? The world's going to change, and you are a part of that change. Whether Donald Trump stays in office or Joe Biden comes in, there will be a change in our society and how we'll react to that. I suggest you react in a way that is most thoughtful, because it might not go your way. It might not go my way. But we are all in this together. We are all Americans. And how we react to this election, whether it goes your way or not, determines whether we're going to survive as a nation. So, my friends, if you find yourself on your knees and the storm lights are coming against you, stand tall, take a look at that storm, and say what my sensei Jacob Burton always says: give me your best shot. Strike the music.